questions from representatives from our financial associations. And I'd like to start with Mr. Doug Turnbull, who's chair of the board of directors of the Toronto Financial Services Alliance and also the deputy chair at TD Securities. Doug.
Thank you, Janet. In 2010, a new partnership initiative was launched between three levels of government and the financial sector to increase financial service jobs and investment in the Toronto region. This has involved gaining a more strategic understanding of the sector and a more intensive focus on both attracting global financial players to set up or expand operations here, as well as supporting the growth of our own domestic global players in the region and abroad. The commitment and participation by the City, Ontario, and Ottawa has been instrumental in leveraging the same commitment and participation by the private sector. My question is this: should your party form the government on October 7th, what will you do to continue and build on this momentum?
And the order, we were going to be rotating, so it'll be Minister Pupatello, Mr. Rossi, and Mr. Prue.
Thanks so much, Doug, for that. And I can tell you that our government is going to continue doing exactly what we've been doing, and that is launching this partnership that's worked. We've stepped forward with putting our money where our mouth is and actually funding this partnership. We funded the Global Risk Institute that is now becoming known around the world in the financial service industry. We went to London, England, to the Canary Wharf and talked to those bankers at the same time that that government was speaking to its industry about how it was going to raise their taxes, raise their regulatory environment, and say, we're doing the opposite in Ontario. We want you to come here. We sat down with the people at Barclays to hear the story about what we were doing with our financial service industry. They were more than a little impressed. We went from there to New York City and met the co-CEO of Barclays, and within a month was at the expansion in downtown Toronto of Barclays in Toronto. This is the kind of step process that we've worked on for a long time. We've developed that kind of team effort that to bring whoever it is you need in our sales team to sell Ontario and land the business here. For the first time, our government called together every foreign bank that has branches in Ontario for a very certain reason. When those banks come from around the world, the businesses come with them. When those businesses, we're trying to sell them and land them in Ontario, and they see a bank that they recognize from their home country, they're far more likely to feel comfortable coming to do investment in Ontario. And we're using that sort of chain reaction
Minister Pupatello,
to make that happen.
Thank you very much.
You.
Mr. Rossi.
Thank you. I take no small measure of pride at the success of the TFSA. Former colleagues of mine from the Boston Consulting Group that did a lot of the initial analysis, and I was fortunate enough to be part of some of that hub thinking when I was at BCG. But this isn't just about Ontario. It's about ensuring that all three levels of government play the key role in coordination. And this is something that we are going to focus our attentions on should we be fortunate enough to form the next government. It is still too often that Mississauga is out there trying to compete with Toronto or Richmond Hill or Markham. And that is a problem still. So we need to coordinate. It's not enough simply for the one level of government to understand what needs to be done. We need to coordinate as a whole. You're a great example of how much a public-private partnership can accomplish, but there is really very much more. And one of the key initiatives in the TFSA thinking that I think all Ontarians share as a goal, and that is to ensure that the National Securities Regulator is formed and is formed here where it belongs in Toronto. We don't ask that the Wheat Board have an office in Toronto. And similarly, people should see that this is the financial hub of the country, and therefore we need to work with our federal counterparts and our provincial counterparts to make sure we reflect that reality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rossi. Mr. Prue.
Thank you very much, and you're not going to hear very much disagreement on this issue. We will continue exactly what has been happening over the last number of years. We believe that it is right for Toronto, right for Ontario. And Toronto is, and I make no bones about it for people who live outside of this city, this is the financial capital of all of Canada, and in fact is one of the largest financial capitals in the world, and probably the most progressive and best off today, and as a result of the actions of many of the people in this room. I am in full agreement that the National Securities Regulator needs to be here in this city. There is no other place that it could properly be. The only, I think, divergence that I may have from my colleagues is around the stock exchange. There was a debate in Ontario. The committee looked at the possibility of the merger of the stock exchange with London, and it was Gilles Bisson for the New Democrats who voiced his concern that the stock exchange should remain 100% within Canadian hands, and that we did not want to play second fiddle to London or to anyone else. And I think I look to the people in this room to be able to do that, and to make Canada and Toronto and Ontario proud. We have the wherewithal, the intelligence, the drive in this room to go it on our own and to develop our resources here in Ontario and in Canada.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much, Mr. Prue. We're now going to go to our second question, which is from the Association of Canadian Pension Management. And representing the ACPM this morning is the association's president, Mr. Chris Brown, who's also the managing partner of Spectrum HR Law. Mr. Brown.
Pension and retirement savings coverage levels in the private sector are at historically low levels. With the aging demographic in Canadian society, retirement income issues will only become more important in the coming years. Today, we have the Canada Pension Plan, which serves an important purpose in providing a base of benefits, but has certain limitations beyond that. And more recent efforts, such as the pooled registered pension plan concept, are targeted towards specific aspects of the coverage problem, but neither of those are intended to be the one single solution. So our question, beyond the CPP and the PRPP, what other measures do you support for increasing pension and retirement savings plan coverage in Ontario? And do you believe that working with the federal and other provincial governments to create a significantly more harmonized regulatory system is a priority in providing retirement income prospects for Canadians?
Thank you very much, Chris. And the order on this one will be Mr. Prue, Minister Pupatello, and Mr. Rossi. Mr. Prue.
Yes, it should come as no surprise to anyone in this room that New Democrats believe in defined benefit pension system. We think that this is the way to go. It has proven over generations to be the best tool we have to look after people in their time of older age. We believe as well that we need to set up a pension benefits guarantee fund, create an Ontario pension agency for stranded pensions. We've all witnessed what has happened to the Nortel pensioners, the dire straits that many of them are finding themselves in, and this was part of the recommendation of the Arthur's report. And we as New Democrats were disappointed that the Ontario Pension Agency and the Pension Benefits Guarantee Fund were two very reasonable recommendations from Arthur's that was not introduced in legislation by the McGuinty government. We also think that we should go full scale and adopt all of the recommendations that Harry Arthur's put in his report in terms of pensions and pension guarantees. And we want to develop an Ontario retirement plan to provide a publicly administered defined benefit pension plan for all employees. And we think that that will ensure that no one is left behind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prue. Minister Pupatello, I need more coffee this morning.
Thanks for the question. And I think it's one of those extremely complicated issues, and we're delighted that so many people have stepped forward in their capacity as ministers, frankly, of finance across the country to sit together to sort this out. It's not just a problem for Ontario, it's a problem nationwide. And I think they have had serious discussions. Ontario was at the table and leading part of that discussion on that pooled pension plan to see what can we do collectively to make it easier. I was pleased to see you reference in your question the regulatory environments around pension plans nationwide. The Ontario government has had a tremendous record on the harmonization of regulation. For one, our agreement with Quebec, for example, an historic agreement to work with them on harmonization of regulation generally, not just in the field of finance, but importantly, taking that same process to try to get that harmonization happening in other sectors, including this one. Our finance minister, in fact, is on record in his support of these national committees that have to deal with these issues, and they're tough issues to deal with. The Premier, at the Premier's Council, which brings all the premiers together from coast to coast, has tabled the pension issue so that it would be on the national agenda. So we have a good record of doing that. No one is going to pretend that the answers are easy. If they would have been, governments historically would have fixed it by now. It's tough, and I think we've got to bite the bullet, as they say, and get roll up our sleeves and get into the detail of these issues.
Thank you very much,
thanks.
Minister Pupatello. Mr. Rossi.
Thanks very much for the question, Chris. And let me answer the second part of your question first. Clearly, we have to be committed to working with the federal government and our provincial counterparts on greater harmonization. And you guys know better than the rest of us the difficulties around multi-employer, multi-jurisdictional pensions, and we've got to attack that if we're going to give other options on the table. Unlike our New Democratic friends, we don't see a one-size-fits-all government solving this for everyone's solution. That's the road to bankruptcy, quite frankly. What we need to be doing is to ensure that this is not just a government-to-government discussion. I mean, in this room and in this town are some of the most creative experts in the area of savings and pensions, and we need to be working with the sector around creative solutions. We need to reduce the red tape and regulatory problems that actually increase the cost of savings and pensions so that we do come up with affordable options for everyone to pick up. And finally, we have to make sure that we leave more money in taxpayers' hands so that they have the money to save. And that's another thing. So long as governments continue to think of its citizens as an infinite ATM machine, so long will we have difficulty in allowing people to save enough for their retirements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rossi.